Hello, hello.
Shawn, you've got your glasses on.
Look at these. What do you think of these?
You look really smart.
I look really smart. You know what they are for? They're for blue light filtering and all, for video gaming and for my screen time as an author. And they have speakers built into them. They're called Razer Anzu, and they have speakers built into them. They're really cool. So I could like answer phone calls.
Do you know anybody that plays video games?
Nobody at all. Not me. Don't look behind me. Not me.
Well, Shawn, we're on a Facebook Live again. We've been gone for a while.
Yeah, we took a short break, not from the podcast, but from Facebook Live. And hello from everybody who's watching. There's people from all over the place. I see some of our friends like Brian and Melissa, but I also see people who are new to us. And there's people from South Africa, Florida, Virginia, Fullerton, California. This is awesome. Texas. Wow. There's awesome people on here. This is amazing. So we have quite a crew who are joining right now on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on our platform. Oh, it looks like we have Periscope. Is Periscope still a thing? I had no idea, Bob.
I don't even know what Periscope is.
It's like through Twitter, you can actually go live, and it's called. Maybe it's not Periscope anymore, but it shows the Periscope icon. So hello to everybody, the UK. Woo! We just interviewed somebody from the UK for our show. It was awesome. Actually, I should say Europe. He wasn't from UK, but for the show, it was awesome. And Belgium and Australia. This is getting better. This is like people from everywhere in the world right now. Do we have any Africans? Come on, my Africans! I'm part African. I don't know if you know that. Like I left my soul and my heart there when I went there.
You've been there a few times, right?
Iowa and Atlanta. This is awesome. So we have a great crew. Well, we're doing these lives, you guys. So just to set your expectation for what we're doing today is Bob and I are creating conversations for what God's doing in the marketplace. We have a podcast called Exploring the Marketplace. We also talk about how to hear God in the marketplace. That's our book, Wired to Hear. And Bob and I both do some consulting on the side. Bob much more prolifically than I do, but just because I'm more on the media side and working in the entertainment industry, and Bob's more on the consulting side. And then he also has a painting business. And so we're here to answer questions for you guys in this live in just a few minutes.
Hey, Shawn,
so if you have a question about your career, entrepreneurship, venture capitalism, just kidding, anything that has to do with the marketplace, we'd love to talk to you and answer those questions.
Well, Africa got here.
Yeah.
We got Zimbabwe, but really I like Minnesota with a question mark. Yes.
We love you, Minnesota. Don't worry. We love you. As a matter of fact, I'm talking to one of the people who's running for governor right now in Minnesota, praying for them regularly. But Minnesota's been one of the places we visited in most of our tours, which is awesome. We love, especially Minneapolis.
We've got Ashley, part of our Jesus Culture family from Folsom, Sacramento, California.
We love us some Jesus culture, and we love us in Zimbabwe. Bernard, that's awesome. We're believing for the restoration of God's dream over Zimbabwe for sure. And Honduras. This is awesome. Well, let's get started. But tell me what's been going on in your world, because we've taken a little break here. What are you working on? Your book.
That's a good question. I'm finishing a new book, but I've been working on this interesting thing, and maybe some of our listeners can relate to this. I've been working on trying to find balance in a crazy schedule, trying to figure out like what are the important things that God's calling me to, and then filtering the other things out in order to, manage myself, manage my job, what we're doing together, and then, my family.
Yeah, between Lauren, who brings you into a million things you would have never done without her, and between me, who's brought you into all kinds of things that you would have never done without me, probably. You need to write a book for people who need to set boundaries and margins.
Yeah. And
what to do when I have a wife like my wife and a friend like Shawn. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And a good God who just opens all these amazing doors. And it's so funny because I think so many things that you and I are doing are good, and having to say no to good things is hard sometimes. Because
I feel like, when you walk with God and when you walk at any level of success, you're constantly disappointing people, and that's something that no one ever tells you when there's any success on your life, that you're gonna have to say no more than you say yes, like a lot more than you say yes. And you watch people when you say no to something that's good, but it's not your gig, it's not your lane. you watch people who you love and who you trust who get disappointed or get sad at times because they're so happy and proud of what they're doing and they're trying to include you in it. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. And it's just, I've had to say no way more than yes. And it's almost exhausting because the conversations and you want to have the emotional intelligence and the right approach to it. But yeah, it's something that happens. And so Bob, I love that you're learning this. I love that I'm learning this. It's just one of those things that no one trains you in advance.
Well, it makes you think of the story of Jesus on the road. He makes a commitment to go to somebody's house to heal someone. And it's a great story because he does it. But what we don't think about is the throngs and the crowds that were surrounding him that he basically said no to.
Yeah, he passed out.
And that there were so many good things in that crowd and that throng, but he made a commitment to say yes, and he went and he passed up so many people. And I don't think they were pleased that he said, "Look, I'm going to go over there, and I'll check you guys later." So so we can learn a lot from him and the way that he handled his life too.
I know. I actually was in that Bible school class, and they taught something similar to that, which was basically, what about the times when he was in a crowd where he didn't heal them all, and somebody brought their daughter from a 2-day away march, and what was their response? And we don't know those stories that have that may never have happened, but what are the stories that we don't hear where it's like Jesus had to do what the Father told him to do, right, and live in the grace of that, which is just wow. I mean, I want to live that way. I want to live in the grace of what the Father tells me to do. But it is hard when you face the margin boundaries and new seasons. Here you are, you've done this in 3 or 4 other seasons really well, and you're in a brand new one and having to do it again. I mean, it's just like, it's so wild that you have to recreate these skill sets for new seasons or use the skill sets you've already developed in new ways.
Yeah, I think, I love the scripture when Jesus says, "I do what I see the Father doing."
Me too.
And that gives me hope for my life. If I can say, well, I've got a schedule, I've got commitments, but maybe what I can just do is ask the Lord, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And who should I be meeting and where should I be going, to try to simplify sometimes what's a complex schedule. So that's kind of what I'm dealing with.
I love that.
What about you?
I feel like I've been more social again because we're in LA, so it's still really locked down, even though you can see your friends and family. We're just, with school starting again, we've been less social than normal. And so I've been able to be more social. I've done a couple of gigs with TBN where I've been on their praise show that are pre-recorded coming out. So during that time, I'll visit friends in Orange County and make some new friends. I ended up going out with some TikTok celebrities, who are Christians last night. And then meeting with a friend who's, has 80,000 employees tonight. He's a businessman who has, he owns a whole industry basically. And I'm like, I learned so much from every time. He's intrigued by me because he's learning how to hear from God still. And I'm intrigued by him because I don't know how he has his head screwed on right with what he deals with. I mean, like one time he was telling me 120 different lawsuits he was dealing with in 1 month because of the industry he's in. It's not their company, it's just industry specific. And I just was like, how are you okay? And he's like, oh no, it's not a big deal at all. I have lawyers for all that. I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not you, so just the kinds of people that I feel like, I've been God's socialite a little bit and just really learned from a lot of people and been able to pour into some people behind the scenes. And it's been really rewarding and unique for the last few months. It's been that way, but more so in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've had a lot of people who have come in from out of town. And then I've been writing again for CBN News and Charisma News. And so one of the joys I had is in the last couple of weeks watching a movie called Sin Proof. And it's a movie that came out of a guy who's from Bethel Church in Redding. His name's Elijah Stevens. And he wrote a movie about why isn't there more proof for the healing ministries that are out there and like for the healing nature of God. But it's so positive what he writes. But he got to interview some of the top skeptics, both who are atheists and also who are Christian skeptics, and then interview some of the top healing evangelists. And it was such a great movie. It was launched last night, but I was able to interview him and write about the movie for CBN News. And it was just one of those things where you look at it and go, I love, part of the prophetic is journalistic in my sphere. So I love being able to report what God's doing through projects and movies. And Hollywood, on one of my articles, Hollywood Prayer Network celebrated their 20th year as a ministry. One of the the fastest growing Hollywood ministries that has had the most impact over the last 20 years. And they just celebrated 20 years and they're going stronger than ever and have more chapters than ever. And just so, being able to be a part of things and report and connect to the leaders of them and being, investigating what God's doing and being able to write about that has been my joy lately. But on the family front, Sheree is planting with your wife today. I think they're probably going to do another 100 plants today at my house. Lauren, your wife, is coming up to my house with a truck full of stuff because Sheree has a photo shoot with Better Homes and Gardens and Magnolia for a product brand. And she's going to be the model, and they're doing an advertorial and an editorial on her. And so Lauren's coming up to help prepare our farm for it.
That's so exciting.
It's so awesome.
You're going to have a whirlwind tonight. Well, hey, listen, ask your questions in the comment section. Shawn and I would love to answer your questions about your job, or if you own a business, or your life. We've written Wired to Hear, which is hearing God in the marketplace, and hopefully you've gotten a chance to read the book. You could comment about that. We're just here for you for the next, looks like 20 more minutes.
Yeah, this is going to be good. Sin Proof is by Elijah Stevens. So someone just asked about that. A few people have put it in there. Bolz Ministries, we just put it in there for everybody. Oh yeah, Melissa, come back and visit our church. Seriously, Expression 58. I don't pastor anymore, but I still attend there. Love our pastors, love our church. Okay, so here we go. Someone just starting a small business, what's the best advice? There you go. In 2021, it's so different now. Whoops. Are you there, Bob?
Okay. Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
So
there's a little bit of a glitch.
Sorry, what was the best advice you'd give someone for starting a business in 2021?
Well, have courage. And I think there's so many opportunities. One of the things that we're hearing right now is that that everything's bad, but actually, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to start a business, this is a great time to start a business. Interest rates are low. We've had a lot of turnover in all kinds of business sectors with people not making it through the pandemic. And I think this is a great time to start.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have so many people we've even had on Exploring the Marketplace who are telling us they've started things in the pandemic that they're so grateful because they would have never had that opportunity outside of the pandemic. And so it's a new time, and I love your advice. I agree with you. We have Ashley Clark here who says, I keep having a vision of wild, strong horses running on a prairie. Can you give me any wisdom? And this is super easy. Actually, we don't do a lot of interpretation during these lives because these are about the marketplace. But I have a feeling that this has to do with your calling in your career. And it represents that God's giving you the strength to pioneer. So he's showing you, he's sending supernatural strength and help around you. Horses represent usually strong relationships that can go the long journey, or they represent the vehicles or the gifts, the assignments you have to be able to go into pioneering. And so God's giving you a vision of a recurring vision because he wants to really reiterate it, that he's going to give you all the strength you need to do the pioneering you're called to. So I hope that helps you.
That's super cool. I've got Shawn. Jacine Robertson asks, how do you steward a new idea that excites you?
Starting from stage one, I'm thinking we're talking about like a product or a business or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we would start with that's a great question. And I've seen you many times on Facebook, so I'm glad you're here again. I think you do feasibility on it first. The first thing you do is pray, ask God if it's from him, try and weigh it as a word, get some confirmation. Sometimes confirmation comes from sharing it with a few friends and just having them weigh it with you. Sometimes it comes through other prophetic words or revelation, but do some feasibility while you're doing it. Like, research that other people have walked in that idea, how successful that can be. I remember for a while I was, I'm a pretty decent artist, and I went after the fine arts world, and I had some ideas on what I could do for that. And I was realizing like I was making $5,000 to $10,000 for an original piece of art, which is pretty good for starting out. And but I was realizing it took me so long. My process was so long that I could only put out 5 pieces at the most a month, and not all those would be sold. It was like a commissioned art. Like I'd sell like 2 a month. And so it sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at the other areas of my life that could create more finances, that wasn't a lot of money. And that was actually something that was more of a hobby that I like to do. And I lost my passion doing it when I did it for a business. So after a year and a half of being featured in some clubs and some in Hollywood and being featured in a lot of coffee shops and local joints, I realized I don't want to do this anymore as a major career choice, but I want to do this more on the side to express myself. So even walking some things forward, and again, I could do that because I was already painted, so I had the supplies and everything, and I had some people who wanted some stuff. So, but taking some small steps and seeing, is this really me? Is this how I'm supposed to receive this? It actually helped balance out what that gifting and talent was for me in creativity, because I always had a what if, like, what if I was a fine artist? And after I did it for a while, I was like, nope, that's not it. So sometimes you have to walk it out just to see if your identity is in there. And that can be costly at times, but it's worth it a lot of times when you're going on the journey to just take those small steps. I took a pretty big step, but realized that that wasn't who I am. So I think a lot of people coming to LA, they think they're gonna be an actor and they end up working in sound technician or they a video editor or whatever. And they're like, oh, acting was not it at all. I tried it. I hated it, but I love, doing video editing. And so I think we have to, like, you learn by taking steps forward towards that theme, and don't be so defined in the theme of the idea that you lock yourself in. Like, I will be the next Walt Disney, which means I have to make films in an amusement park. But God's saying you're going to help engineer creativity and you're going to work in robotics. So, or animatronics, you never know. So don't be locked in. Just hold things loosely and let God define them. Don't overly define them.
That's really good. And I think I would just add to that. I would pray. I pray about new ideas, and because sometimes being excited about something is really good. And like Shawn said, once you do a feasibility study, it might not be so exciting anymore if there's not that much demand. So I just love taking it to the Lord and ask the Lord, like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, Amanda Barnes, and I love that, Bob. Amanda Barnes from YouTube asked a really good question, Bob. And this one, I'm sure other people are going to. So I've been working at the same job for 10 years. I feel like I'm not being appreciated for my hard work, and they keep increasing the demands. It's becoming very stressful. What should I do? And this is where no one's going to advocate for you like you are going to advocate for yourself. You are your own best advocate. And there's things in place in a lot of companies like HR and stuff to help that process, but they won't define that process for you. And so you have to remember, like, God's giving you authority and he's giving you an identity, and your identity is worthy. And so that means that if you feel like you're being underappreciated, undervalued, underpaid, under-resourced, your PTO is bad, whatever it is, you need to go and talk to graciously talk to your manager, your superiors, and tell them exactly what you just told us. Say, okay, I've been here for 10 years. I need to be really honest with how I'm feeling, and I can't get this out of my head. So I don't know what you want to do with it. You could tell them I want to express commitment no matter what, or I don't want to. I want to actually express, like, this makes me reevaluate. Like, am I ever going to be? And you get to either way you want to go, because some people are like, even though they feel this way, they're still going to work for 10 more years in the job. You may actually feel like, unemployment's the lowest it's been in a long time. There's lots of jobs open. You may want to put out your antennas and feelers for something else, but it starts with a conversation before you go there with your direct supervisors to say, this is how I'm feeling. Is there anything that you could see to help me feel differently? And put it in their court. And if they come back and go, well, what do you think you should do? Or what do you think we should do? What they're really doing is saying, we don't actually value, or we don't have the energy, or we don't have the adaptation for your complaint. And that's a good signal to say, you're probably going to have to pray and ask God to open something else where you can feel more valued. But one of the worst things Christians do is we conflict avoid, and we wait for some miraculous solution for our job, and we don't advocate for ourselves. And my wife is awesome. I love Cherie. She's like, she has this motto: be your own advocate. If we've had packages of furniture come that were broken that we ordered for our house, and she calls up the company and is like, okay, what are you going to do about this? And no, when are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? And if it's not done, she calls back, and she doesn't wait for a customer service representative. She's like, she's helping to not guide the process, but she's helping to say, I'm present and you have to respond. And I think that to have that kind of attitude, we don't want to have it an extreme where we end up being a Karen, the people who are like, I'm going to fight for everything I believe in, and we come across as nitpicking, negative, intense. But you do want to fight for your own value and say, here's where I'm feeling undervalued. I really appreciate it. Here's what I appreciate about the company, but I need a problem solver with me to help me with this.
Yeah,
and I think that would help.
That's really good, Shawn. And Amanda, if you happen to have a job description for your job that you know what it is, it would be interesting to pull that out, look at it, because what I'm concerned about is increasing demands. And if you're doing things that are outside of your scope of your job description, that lends more to talking to your direct supervisor. And I think being underappreciated, I don't know if you're sensitive or not very sensitive or very sensitive, but I think that if you're a words of affirmation person, it's going to be really hard if you have a supervisor who doesn't see that value in you. So asking really good questions in the conversation that Shawn's talking about, I think, is really valuable. That's a great question.
I love that question. Well, we have another one from Facebook now. Melissa Flaz, when writing books,
Yeah.
where do you start? I've been told many times by different prophets that I'm supposed to, and I have no idea where to start. And I would say this, first of all, ask God. Most people won't tell you this, but I'll tell you this. Ask God to show you your audience, who you're supposed to love with whatever it is that's inside of you. And what do they need? Because a lot of people will write books, especially itinerant ministries or business guys or whatever, and they write a book that they want written, but there's no audience for it. They're just like, oh, I'm going to write this book because it's so important to me. So I'm going to write the 3 lessons of whatever. And they're not serving anybody with it. But find out who is the ones that God says are the joy set before you, like Hebrews 12, verse 1. And then say, God, what do they need to hear? Well, out of my file cabinet of my stories and my experience, what do they need to hear? If it's novels or if it's creative writing or whatever, that's a different process. But if it's story, teaching, instruction, whatever, real life, I would start with loving your audience, figuring out who they are, what you want to tell them. The number 2 is get somebody who is a writing coach, and they'll give you some assignments. And there's a lot of them that are out there. Get somebody who will come, even a ghostwriter who isn't going to write for you, but say, hey, how would you start? Give me some practicals. Here's what's in me. Help me to flesh it out, and have them come on as a consultant maybe 1 time or 2 times instead of writing the whole book. Because if they've ghostwritten 25 books, they're going to know how they would start the book and how they would end the book. And those are 2 really important points. Take a creative writing class at your local community college. It's going to help you. Take a novel writing class. Take a creative writing. I've taken so many creative writing classes. You got to start somewhere with the educational side and have someone help you in areas, because starting a book is one of the hardest things you could ever do when you're an author, when you've never done it before. Once you've done it though, like I put out 2 books a year, it's no problem. I know my rhythm. I know what I need. I know how I need it for the genre that I write in. And so it's no problem. So you just got to start with some education, also some heart stuff with God.
We have a question from the Diaz family, and they've been called to homeschool, but they've been struggling with on and off chronic health conditions. And I'm sorry about that. I think my best advice to you would be to get to the doctors and find out what the health condition is and get that worked on, because starting homeschooling is not an easy job. And Shawn, you've got young girls, and the amount of energy that goes into that. So I think God's concerned about your health. Get your health fixed, or on the process of having it fixed, so that you can think about starting your homeschool.
Well, we have a high value of self-care too. And it's kind of like on a plane when they say, when the oxygen masks drop, put yours on yourself first and then put it on your child. And I feel like that's the same principle in God, is like, take care of yourself first, so you're thriving, living, able to do what you're called to do. And then you'll have the energy to do it. So even if you have to pull out for a little bit, Diaz family, maybe you can't honor the commitment because of the chronic health stuff. God wants to help you, and he wants to help you help yourself. And maybe it's a medical process, maybe there's some spiritual healing or physical healing he wants to do, but he wants to help you. But it's okay to take it. Let's say for 9 months you have to work on this, or 2 months you have to work on this, or maybe it's like a long-term dietary thing or whatever. Do that first. Put the oxygen mask on first. Then you'll have plenty of time to help someone next to you. But if you don't do it first, you're both going to die. They're both going to suffer too much. So that's an important one.
Yeah. Well, so we just ask for your health.
Yeah, we ask God to
and that you would be blessed, and you'd be healed, and that you could get on with your life now, in Jesus' name.
I agree. We have Cat Mom right here. I love your name. How does one this is from YouTube. How does one shut out the constant bombardment of the craziness going on when they have a sense of nature? I need to begin my prophetic art ministry, but I'm struggling with focus. And that is so honest for this year, especially because whether it's racism or political stuff or whatever else, there's so many things, or whether it's maybe your local church is going through stuff, your community, whatever. So many, I know that half of my friends are going through life crisis on top of coronavirus, on top of everything else that's going on in the pandemic. And then we also watch all the disasters that are happening and all it's the craziest time in anyone I know who's lived in the modern history. So that's very honest. I would say the beautiful thing is you have a prophetic art ministry, which means that there's a worship element to what you're doing. And if you're struggling with focus, you're going to have to learn mindful meditation or focusing on Jesus and shutting everything else out. And I know all of us have been there when you're worshiping God. If you're a Christian and you've gone into a worship time that was connected, where all of a sudden you're worshiping and you're just focused on him so much that everything else fades away for a minute, or it's just background noise. It's no longer there. And that's what Peter entered into when he had a trance. That's another word for that is trance. It's Christian word trance is used 7 times in the New Testament. It's a heightened state of focus or awareness on God. So not only can you have help in the struggle from God, but it has given us an ability to focus on him in a hyper focus or heightened focused way and to get into flow with him. And Flow State, Josie Lewis, who just did a creative event with us last month, I'd encourage you to watch at least the night session, which is free. If you want to do the whole thing, you can get online. It's a great one. But learning how to drown out the noise, you have to learn what your focal point is. And I know when, with youth, when I started ministry, we had to teach them how to, just sit for 90 seconds. They'd have a hard time focusing for 90 seconds. So they'd have to bring it back to Jesus. Picture Jesus in your head. Now, every time you're not focused on him anymore, just say his name out loud, Jesus. And just like learning basic philosophy of focus, period, or of just having one thing that you're allowing yourself to, your sensory life and your heart and your emotions to focus on. Do it with Jesus and meditate on Jesus and study some really good Christian books on mindful meditation or meditation that are from a Christian only perspective. And it's going to help you out a whole bunch.
That's really good. Well, we have time for a couple, maybe one more. I've got Thomas Millar. If you're close to a breakthrough deal for your business, how often should you contact the other party to move things along? Once a week, less or more? Well, one of the things I do, Thomas, is I ask the person that I'm about to have a breakthrough with, when do you want me to contact you next? And I understand sometimes the urgency in business and how much this deal is going to be for you, but there has to be some part of you that is in relationship and partnership with the people that you're working with. And so sometimes I'll just ask, well, okay, should I call you this week or in 2 weeks? And they'll always say, the funny thing in my business is, oh, call us back in 2 weeks. We'll have a decision. And we all laugh when we hear that. But it's something that it's a hard practice to do, not to call every day, because that's what I want to do, call every day. But thank you for the question. And we ask for your breakthrough deal that it would come through for you.
Yeah,
in Jesus' name.
Do that. Well, you guys are awesome. We are going to be back on here soon. And so make sure to join us on our next live. I do have a class coming up. That's an amazing class. I've been having classes on our platform. So we've had the last one, which is ending this week, is Deliverance. And you can still go back through on the bolzministries.com educational platform. You can get the Deliverance 4-week class and watch it. Although you won't have the live sessions, won't be live anymore. They're still on there. We also had Interpreting Your Dreams and Revelations with Stephen Jenny Maddox, which was a 4-week class just 2 months ago. And now I'm doing one on processing your prophetic words. So if you've got prophetic words from others, or if you have some from God, how do you process those so they become actionable points? And what do you do with them? We're doing a 4-week class, and it starts just in a couple of weeks coming up. I'm sure our Bolz Ministries can put in both links in YouTube and in Facebook. So it's right there. But I'm so excited about this class, Bob, because most people get prophetic words and they're like, what do I do with that? Like, how do I set expectation to actually build with that word? And it's one of my favorite topics because I sit around with friends and people I consult with, and we dissect the prophetic word and go on a journey with it so that it actually builds our foundation of faith and our prophetic journey, our spiritual journey in life, which is so cool. We also have our book, Wired to Hear. If you've never read it or never heard of it, please get a copy. You can get anywhere books are sold. And Wired to Hear is available from Bob and I, where we wrote it together. And it's going to teach you in your place of influence, life, or career how to hear God even more. And we also have partnership journey for you. If you want to join our partnership and become one of the Bolz Ministries partners, you're going to help us to get our media all over the world. Our YouTube channel has a show called Your Prophetic Journey. Our podcast, we have 3 podcasts, and one of them Bob and I host together, Exploring the Marketplace. And we'd love for you guys to help send those media formats and that ministry around the world with us by becoming a partner. And there's a great give back to you. We pray for you regularly. We have partnership people who call. We give away some of our product, and we have a partner only portal on our website, and you will feel like you're changing the world with us. It's pretty profound what happens. But thank you guys so much for being here. We love you. And I hope you guys will join us for a future one.
Yep. We'll see you next time.